Greetings and welcome to the Superb Diamond Range Show. Today's date is the 9th of April 2015. This is episode 26, The Water. Water is essential. Our bodies are 50 to 70% water. Water is very good for allowing us to digest food, dissolving nutrients so that they can pass through the intestinal cell walls into your bloodstream and move food along through your intestinal tract. Carry waste products out of your body, provide a medium in which biochemical reactions such as metabolism, digesting food, producing energy, and building tissue occur. Send electrical messages between cells so that your muscles can move, your eyes can see, your brain can think, and so on. Regulate body temperature, cooling your body with moisture, perspiration that evaporates on your skin. Lubricate your moving parts. I remember many years ago on a really hot summer's day in London, going for a walk with a friend through our hometown, and we ended up in a Sainsbury's supermarket, and it was so hot that the friend sort of made a suggestion that we should get ourselves a drink, and he was going to offer to buy me a drink, and I sort of he asked me what I was looking for, so I just said I'll go for a water. And he couldn't believe that I wanted a water, and I said, what are you going to have? And he told me he's going to have some Coca-Cola, and I said to him that you'd be better off drinking water. It'll be more refreshing, and it will quench your thirst a lot better. And he just sort of said to me that I really want a tasteful drink. I'm not going to pay for a water that I can have at home anytime from the tap. And that kind of led me to believe that a lot of people have an attitude about water. I mean, there's many people I've met that don't like drinking water in its sort of natural form, or as close to natural as you can get. There's many people that enjoy drinking a lot of tea with milk in it, and they don't really want to, they like to dilute, fruit juices with their water, like Robinson's, for example, or they'd rather go for some pop fizzy drink. And it's very sad that, water is such a brilliant thing that it works really well for the body, and it keeps your mind very clear, and it's just good for you all around, like explained earlier. If you can imagine being in a desert, the last thing you'll want is a Coca-Cola or a beer. All you'll be thinking about is water, because you know that water will be the best thing for you, because water is you and you are water. I mean, I lived in London most of my life, and I remember the tap water in London being absolutely atrocious. No doubt it was due to the fact that the water was privatised over there in England, but it just felt like there was so many chemicals and so much rubbish in it, fluoride, chlorine, you name it, it was in there. And I absolutely could not enjoy drinking the tap water there. And I can kind of understand why people wanted to dilute it and put other things in it, because it was very hard to drink. And I used to know a lot of Chinese people that always used to boil the water before drinking it, and I did try that for a while, but never quite liked the taste. And obviously when you're boiling it, if you're boiling it in a particular pot, maybe like a non-stick pot or something like that, a lot of the properties of that pot can go into the water and affect and change the taste. And that's something that I'll probably get into later on. But and I've it was just really, really not a nice experience to drink the water. And you would get used to it, I guess, because you had no alternative. But it wasn't something that you would enjoy. But you kind of knew you had to take it in some way or another. But you probably knew deep down it wasn't the kind of water you should be getting, which we all deserve, which is clean, fresh water, whether it be spring or distilled. I want to talk about water in the third world countries, places like in South America. Again, the water tastes really terrible in some parts, and obviously people have to do things again like boiling it or have a filter. And I have an opinion on filters. I mean, I'm not completely against them, but I think that you need to take it to the next level. But a filter is a good beginning in trying to take out some of the bad boys or the bad properties within the water. But at least having a filter is one step forward. It's better than just taking it how it is. And I mean, in some parts of the world it's so dirty, the water, you can't even drink it, and it will make you sick, like maybe places like like in Africa and stuff, you hear about the water not being very clean, so they take it because they need it, but at the same time, it's not the kind of water that they deserve, and like everyone should have a right to, basically. I remember coming across information on YouTube and a website known as the Aquarius the Water Bearer, and it involved a guy, I believe it's Andrew Norton Webber. Hopefully I got it right. He basically talked about distilled water being very, very good for you, and he made videos about it and did interviews. And I think initially he started off by going to his supermarket in America and buying containers of distilled water, so you could get like a few liters, and he would just drink that. And eventually it kind of progressed to buying a distiller machine and obviously distilling your tap water at home. I can't even remember if he had a well in his garden or something as well, but there was, he was just trying to look for things to be a lot cleaner and look after yourself. And distilled water is perfect for people living in the city, because the water's so bad that if you distill the water, after a few months of using the distiller, you'll start to notice like the bottom of the distiller becomes like kind of like a concrete starts forming, or it looks like concrete, but it's all the rubbish and all the crap that gets put into the water sort of building up. And I was also told, and this was by a gentleman called Marcus Sesbury, who has a shop called mamapenguin.co.uk, but I'll explain more about that later. But that was where I initially bought a distiller from. And I remember speaking to him on the phone, having a really long conversation about distilled water, and he sort of mentioned about dogs, that if you put a bowl of sort of city tap water down versus a bottle of a distilled water into their bowl, and you sort of made the dog choose between the two, the dog would always go for the distilled water because he knew it was better. And it would be the same when people would go for walks with their dog and it was raining and there was a puddle, the dog would always try and drink the rainwater, which is another form of distilled water. I believe also fruit, the water within fruit is distilled, and apparently our urine is a type of distilled water as well. To me, after coming into that knowledge and realizing that it could really change your life and make you a lot healthier, and I always knew water was very important. It's one of the most important things. I mean, we need it, and it's very important for staying alive, and we live very busy lives, and we can easily get dehydrated, and water keeps us hydrated and keeps us thinking straight and clear. It's one of the most amazing gifts that we've been given, and it's invaluable if you ask me. So going back to Marcus Sesbury, I recommend visiting his website, which is mama-penguin.co.uk, but I will include the address in the show notes. And if you go over to his store, and if you sort of quote Superb, or that you heard it from Superb Diamond Range podcast, I'm sure that he'll be able to arrange a discount for you there. I definitely 100% believe in distiller machines. It's definitely better than buying bottled distilled, because obviously bottled distilled might not be contained in glass. It might be plastic, and plastic has properties that can kind of go into the water, especially if they've been there for a long time. So I would definitely go down the route of getting a distiller machine. And for people that are trying to make their own alcohol, unless you live in a city like I do currently, where the water's really clean and tastes really good, but if you live in another city like London or Bristol or Birmingham, maybe, not sure how their water is in Birmingham, but I would advise to get a distiller, because again, that would make your water taste a lot better. And obviously if you're going to make alcohol, it's going to make the brews come out a lot fresher taste and a lot nicer. A lot of the big alcohol companies use distilled water to make things like whiskey and beer, and it's probably because they know the water that the city where they're operating out of is probably not great, so they know it will affect the taste. And a lot of people get distilled water confused with the ones that they use for engines. They think that, because I remember telling people about distilled water once, and they kept making a joke about it being used to clean engines, and that is true. There is a version of distilled water for that, but it just kind of proves how good it is. It can clean, but obviously I believe it is slightly different, so I don't recommend buying that, obviously. But the important thing is to, just do your research. You've got the website Aquarius, the water bearer. You've got Mama Penguin. There's other sites like JD Harris. They sell a lot of different products. But yeah, definitely look into it and do your research. I actually, the distiller that I've got, I'm going to give you the name just now. It's Mega Home, and I have it with a glass jug. And I usually recommend, particularly if you're a family or two or more, to invest in 2 glass jugs, because obviously when you distill 4 litres of water, you'll have another one ready, kind of thing. Especially in the summertime, when people tend to drink more water than normal, you'll have plenty of water available, because it does take a little while to distill. And one of the things you'll obviously need to get is, like, they call it the activated charcoal. It's like a filter that you replace, once a month. They're very cheap, and every month you need to put a new one in, and then obviously you get a citric acid as well, which is used to clean the machine down, because, as I said, after a month the concrete and all the rubbish and dirt builds up. And I remember showing friends pictures of how they were looking, and they couldn't believe that they were drinking it. And I was saying, well, you see it all at the bottom of this machine, but imagine what it's doing to your body, and all this crap and rubbish in your body. Diamond, my co-host, also he actually used distilled water as well, and he really likes it, and many other friends I've recommended it to have sort of gone out and bought distillers, and I've even recommended it to family members, and some of them have gone for it, some not, but it really can change your life. And I mean, I would recommend people to spread the word about it. So if you know anybody that you think could benefit from it, which is pretty much everyone, because it really does help you a lot. And one advice I was given is that you should try to take at least a litre a day, to notice real differences, and try to drink nothing but it, so rather than drinking the rubbishy drinks that are out there, just try and drink distilled water regularly, and you will see a difference in your health and well-being, and your mind will be a lot clearer, and it's a lot better for you than these Coca-Colas and Dr. Peppers of this world that have things like aspartame in them that is really no good for you anyway, and toxo exciters or whatever you call it. They just sort of mess up your brain and you can't think straight. But if you drink clean water, that you're going to be much sharper, much more ready to take on the world. And I mean, obviously I'm living in Edinburgh at the moment, and the first thing I noticed was the water tastes great here. And I had heard before that the water in Scotland tasted really good, and I've even heard in places like Wakefield and Leeds the water's very good. So it seems the further you move away from London, the water does definitely seem less contaminated, I guess. But I noticed here the water is great. And I mean, I've never done a real test on the water. I have like a thermometer type thing that I received with the distiller that can kind of tell you the pH of, obviously the distilled water, but also you can do it with the tap water. And I haven't really done the test to kind of find out, what the difference is, but it definitely tastes really clean and fresh. And I mean, I will alternate from the sort of water here to the distiller, depending on how I feel really. But initially, I've been quite enjoying just drinking the tap water here. But I think I just make the exception here. If I lived anywhere else, I thought the water wasn't so great, because I knew somebody that was trying to make their own beer, and they were originally from Bristol, but they noticed that they admitted the water being really terrible down in Bristol, but because they noticed the water was really good up here in Scotland, they didn't bother to invest in a distiller, because I was trying to suggest it to them, and they said, for now we don't need it because the water tastes good and it adds to the flavour. So apart from distilled, there is obviously spring water. And again, not everyone's in a position to get their hands on it. But spring water is amazing too. And I think it is one of the best out there. I have met people that have a different opinion on the distiller versus what they were referring to as Berkeley. This was Arthur Christian, who I interviewed in a previous episode. But he actually was a very big fan of a company called Berkeley. Berkeley do water distillers, and sorry, not water distillers. They do water. How do you call them? Filters. They do water filters, and they're actually much better than Brita. Brita is kind of like a commercial, mainstream, popular brand, but which is German. So don't get me wrong, it should be good, but apparently Berkeley is very big and very good at what they do, but they're not as well known, obviously. And also Berkeley, being a British company, I believe, it's not very popular in Britain, but apparently they do export a lot of things to places like Australia, which is how Arthur Christian came across them, I believe. And, he sort of felt that sometimes the distiller might take too much out of the water and strip too much of the nutrients out, and therefore it might not be quite as, it might be better to keep some of them in. So therefore getting a good filter that took out some bad stuff, but not everything. Because to me, the distilled idea is safer because it kind of doesn't leave anything to chance. It just distills it and gets it as clean as you can. And things like, when you drink distilled, it can go through your system much quicker than, ordinary water would. So it's kind of interesting to sort of, do an experiment really and try. But, you can always check out Berkeley water filters and see what you think of them and, give them a try. I mean, I've seen a few of them and they look really nice, and they have some clay ones, and I've always been a big fan of clay because I've always believed it's good to have like clay jugs or clay cups that you can kind of keep water in, because it's very good at either keeping it hot or keeping it cold depending on what you're using it for. Obviously distilled water is good for things like tea. If you're drinking tea with distilled water, it's going to be a lot cleaner. And that was one of the things about green tea that I remember reading. One of the things about the green tea is they pushed it as being very healthy and very good for you, which I'm not denying is not. But for some reason, if you used fluoridated or very, very dirty water with green tea, it would actually make the fluoride and the chlorine more stronger. So basically it wasn't quite as good for you. But again, if you used the distilled water, that would put that to one side and it wouldn't have the same effect. So it made it concentrated it more, is I think the word I'm trying to look for. So they were really big on pushing people to sort of stop drinking things like coffee and pushing the whole green tea, which again, if you get the right water with it, then there's no problem. It was just because it was being combined with water that wasn't so clean that, as I say, it made it more concentrated, the bad properties within it. Obviously, one thing we do is we drink water, but we also we always wash our faces with water, and we have showers, and showers obviously, there's a lot of pressure going on us, and there's a lot of things within the water, metals and things like that are really sort of hurting us when we're sort of taking showers. And that's why I would recommend shower filters. They don't cost a lot. Sometimes you can get the whole shower head as the kind of like filter, but also you can get like a kind of like a big container that has a filter that connects onto the hose. And I mean, I've taken showers in London with a filter that didn't cost a lot of money. It must have cost about £30, but you could spend more. And I remember coming out and thinking, my skin's not as dry as it normally is, and my scalp is not, very flaky, so I was actually having a much better experience, having showers. I wasn't, coming out looking red and with rashes. I was very, it was much cleaner. And these shower filters can last up to 12 months, then you obviously have to replace them. But shower filters are a very worthwhile investment. And, as I say, if you've invested in a water distiller, that's one thing, but very important to get a shower filter, because obviously if you spend a lot of time taking showers, you want that the water on your skin is equally as good for you as the water you're taking inside. So it's kind of internal and external, but also the internal will look after the external, if that makes sense. Ultimately, what my message for this pod would be is to make a real effort to drink more water. It's very good for you, and I would say that it's so important to drink as much of it as you can and try to avoid the rubbish that's out there, like these pop drinks, fizzy drinks, even drinking too much alcohol, which dries your body out, affects your brain. It's okay maybe once in a while having one or two drinks, but if you're going overboard, then you really need to be thinking about putting more water into your diet and cleansing and being clean and being strong-minded, because nobody wants to have their immune system lowered and be getting sick all the time. And as I say, if you drink the right kind of water, it will do a lot for your health. Maybe you won't get sick as often, or you won't be picking up flus and colds because your body will be operating at a much higher level. So it's very good. And I do have something to mention to one of our listeners, which is, I believe, Vermilion J. Thank you for the feedback you gave on YouTube. I really appreciate what you're saying. To be honest, I am still owning my craft, in that when I record, I try to leave everything natural and real, and almost like I'm talking to the listeners as if I'm on the street with them. And there is a lot of habits that I've got, things like, you know what I mean, and if you know what I'm saying, things like that, and ums and ahs. And these, I could easily edit them, spend the time to edit them, take them out, and it probably would lead to a much more professional sounding pod. But to me, it's not about that. I just want a natural sounding pod. I don't want it to be robotic or cut to pieces. I've listened to a lot of professional podcasts that have staff to do editing and different things, and to me, you can notice when it's chopped to pieces and it's been really heavily edited, and to me it doesn't feel natural, and I don't enjoy that vibe. To me, I like to hit record, and if I can, in one take, do the whole pod. I definitely believe that it could be a case of like confidence. Maybe I could, be doing a pod and not feeling so confident, or kind of forgetting things, and that can result in a lot of ums and ahs and and I mean, I'll be playing this back to myself afterwards, and I'll be like, I can't believe how many what I means and ums and ahs. But the main thing is I'm trying to keep it real and natural, and keep it, I mean, and I don't mean this how it comes out. Everyone's sort of looking for, this professional sounding, professionally presented, and it's all because things like BBC have sort of given us that, and they make us think that we have to all be like that. But to me, we must be separate. We must stand out. We must be who we are. And I always say to people, try recording yourself and seeing if you'll do the same things, and if you do, then you'll relate that it can be tough. Because I've met people that they do things like blogging, and I've always said that I would find it hard to write a blog. But also I find like public speaking difficult, but yet with the pod I'm able to at least attempt it and have a go at it. And I mean, I admit to being an amateur, but I do believe I am improving and getting better. And I definitely feel that when I have more of a grasp on the content and I've done the right research, I definitely feel the confidence comes through. But the habits that I have, I mean, to me, the listeners are people on the street that I'm meeting. You're all basically my brothers, and I see you as very important to me, and I really appreciate the feedback, and I think that it's great that you've given it, and I know that it was a constructive criticism, so I really do appreciate you giving it to me. And as I say, I will try to make more of an effort to try to iron those things out. but I do definitely appreciate the feedback, and thanks for listening. Obviously, to the pod, it's very good. So anyway, I'm just going to give out the contact details again for anybody with any sort of suggestions or any feedback, because I really do want feedback, because without that, it's the only way I can improve or get better. So obviously the email address is superbdiamondrange@gmail.com, and the website's superbdiamondrange.com, and obviously you can head over towards Twitter as well, and Twitter is Superb Diamond RA. That's Superb Diamond Ra. And thank you very much for listening, and peace.